I'm Sophie Bennett, 31 years old, and 5 years ago, I left Seattle behind like a bad dream. My life in Brooklyn was everything I'd built from scratch. A sleek condo in Fort Greene, a high-flying career as a lead software engineer at a cybersecurity firm, and a circle of friends who'd become my real family. But back in 2016, I was nobody to the people who were supposed to love me most. My family hadn't spoken to me since I packed my bags and left for New York. So, when my phone buzzed on a quiet Wednesday night in October 2023, I nearly dropped my coffee mug. The screen read, Sarah, my cousin, the only one who had my new number. Sophie. Sarah's voice was soft, hesitant. Your parents have been asking about you. They want you to come home for Christmas. I sank onto the edge of my bed, the city's hum outside my window fading. Now? I asked, my voice sharp with disbelief. After 7 years of silence? They've been reaching out to everyone, Sarah said. They seem serious this time. I hung up and stared at the exposed brick wall of my apartment. Memories I'd buried came rushing back. Years of being the invisible daughter, the afterthought in a family obsessed with my older brother, Jake. Growing up in North Seattle, I was always the odd one out. Jake was the golden boy, quarterback, prom king, the kid who could do no wrong. Me? I was the quiet girl who got a thrift store sweater for Christmas while Jake unwrapped a new gaming console. At 13, I sat in a cold therapist's office, knees tucked to my chest, while Dr. Monroe told my parents, Sophie's struggles come from being overlooked. My mother, Linda, rolled her eyes. We love both our kids the same, she said. But I knew the truth. Jake was their son. I was a shadow they barely noticed. That October night, as I sat in my Brooklyn apartment, I wondered why they wanted me back. I wasn't the same Sophie they'd ignored. I'd built an empire, a 6-figure salary, a condo I'd bought with my own money, and a reputation as one of the best back-end developers in the industry. My code protected Fortune 500 companies and government contracts. I wasn't just good, I was indispensable. But my family didn't know any of this. To them, I was still the weird kid who faded into the background. I hadn't planned on going back to Seattle. My life was here. Friends who celebrated my wins, a career that challenged me, a city that felt like home. But something about Sarah's call gnawed at me. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was the faint hope that things could be different. I booked a flight for December, packed thoughtful gifts, and prepared to face the family that had forgotten me. This time, I wasn't returning, as the girl they'd dismissed. I was coming back as Sophie Bennett, the woman who'd turned silence into power. Seattle hadn't changed much. The same gray skies, the same damp air that clung to your skin. My childhood home looked smaller than I remembered. Faded blue siding, overgrown hedges, a porch light flickering like it was on its last legs. I stood on the doorstep, suitcase in hand, my heart thudding. I rang the bell and the door creaked open. Sophie? My mother blinked, her voice a mix of surprise and something else. Guilt, maybe? Wow, it's really you. She pulled me into a stiff hug, the kind you give a distant acquaintance. Inside, the house smelled of old wood polish and that same bowl of dried potpourri that had sat on the entry table since I was a kid. The living room was packed. Uncles, aunts, cousins, and neighbors all gathered for the pre-Christmas chaos. Conversations paused as eyes turned to me. Well, look who decided to show up, my Uncle Tom muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Is she wearing sweatpants? Aunt Karen whispered to my cousin Jenna, eyeing my tailored black slacks and cashmere coat. Quiet luxury, but clearly lost on this crowd. Then Jake sauntered in from the kitchen, his arm around a woman I didn't recognize. Everyone, this is Mia, my wife, he said, grinning like he owned the room. He patted her stomach. And this is your future niece or nephew. Congratulations, I said, forcing a smile. Jake smirked. Still hiding in a corner somewhere? Sophie? Laughter rippled through the room. My jaw tightened, but I kept my voice steady. I work in tech. Oh yeah? Jake said, turning to Mia. Sophie was always the weird one, probably fixing printers in some basement. I smiled faintly. Something like that. My mother clapped her hands. Dinner's almost ready. Sophie, put your things down. Jake's using your old room as his office now, so you'll be on the couch. Of course he was. Of course I would be. The next few days were a slow drip of condescension. At every turn I was reminded of my place, or lack of it. Aunt Karen cornered me by the punch bowl, her breath heavy with cheap wine. Jake's starting his own business, you know. Such a visionary. And you're still, messing with computers? I write software, I said, keeping my tone neutral. She scrunched her nose. Well, someone's got to do the boring stuff. Uncle Tom leaned over during dinner prep, his voice low like he was offering me a lifeline. Dishwasher jobs still open at my diner. Minimum wage, but it's honest work. Thanks, I said, forcing a smile. I'm good. At dinner, they sat me at the far end of the table, next to the kitchen door where plates clattered and the fridge hummed. Jake predictably held court. This startup's gonna change everything, he declared, waving a fork for emphasis. We're talking AI-driven logistics, disrupting the supply chain. How much do you need? My father, Robert, asked, leaning forward. 200 grand to get it rolling, Jake said casually, like he was asking for pocket change. I nearly choked on my water. It was every cliché startup pitch I'd heard in boardrooms. Vague, overhyped, destined to crash. My mother patted Jake's hand. We'll figure something out. Family helps family. After dinner, she handed me a threadbare blanket and pointed to the couch. You'll be fine here, she said, like I was a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. Christmas morning arrived, and the living room was a frenzy of wrapping paper and laughter. Jake and Mia tore into my gifts. Luxury scarves, a handcrafted leather wallet, a custom journal for Mia. Thoughtful, expensive, chosen with care. Sophie, these are gorgeous, my mother said, holding up a designer handbag I'd picked for her. You shouldn't have. But when it came time for my gifts, the room went quiet. My mother's face fell, her hand flying to her mouth. Oh, no, Sophie, we completely forgot. Jake burst out laughing. Just like when we were kids. Don't cry this time, Sophie. You're an adult now. The room erupted in chuckles. My cousins smirked. Aunt Karen whispered something to Uncle Tom. I felt every eye on me, waiting for the tears they'd mocked when I was 12, 15, 17. But I wasn't that girl anymore. Something shifted inside me. Not sadness, not anger, but clarity. I reached into my purse and pulled out my keychain, the brushed steel glinting in the light. What's that? My mother asked, frowning. Keys, I said simply. To my new condo. I closed on it last week. Silence crashed over the room like a wave. My father blinked. You bought a condo? With what money? From my job, I said. My company just licensed a cybersecurity framework I built to a major bank. My bonus was solid. My mother's eyes narrowed. How solid? I shrugged. About $150,000 after taxes. You could have heard a pin drop. Jake's mouth hung open. Mia's eyes widened. My parents stared like I'd just confessed to robbing a bank. 150,000? My mother said, her voice pitching up. What kind of job pays bonuses like that? I told you, I said calmly. I'm a software engineer. I build security systems for Fortune 500 clients. My father leaned forward. How long have you been making that kind of money? Since graduation. The bonuses vary, but my salary's been 6 figures for years. The switch flipped. My mother stood, all smiles and sweetness. Sweetheart, why didn't you tell us? We're so proud of you, my father chimed in. Jake, did you hear that? Your sister works with Fortune 500 companies. Jake's jaw clenched. Mia whispered something in his ear. My mother perched beside me, her voice syrupy. Tell us about this condo. How many bedrooms? 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, Fort Greene, near work, I said. She beamed. We should visit. Family should stick together. I almost laughed. Family? After 7 years of silence, now they wanted to play happy family? The next morning, as I packed my suitcase, I heard them whispering. Hushed, urgent voices from the kitchen. When I came downstairs, they were waiting, their smiles strained and eager. Before you go, my father said, stepping forward, we should talk about Jake's business opportunity. As you heard, he needs some startup capital. Jake grinned like he was doing me a favor. It's a solid investment, Sophie. You'd be in on the ground floor. How much? I asked, my voice flat. Just $200,000, he said. With what you make, that's pocket change, right? I looked at them, my parents who'd laughed when Uncle Tom offered me a dishwashing job, Jake who'd spent a lifetime mocking me, Mia who'd chuckled along yesterday morning. I folded my arms. No, the smiles vanished. What do you mean no? My mother snapped. I'm not giving you any money. But we're family, my father said, as if the word meant anything after all these years. Where was family when I was told to find my own place after graduation? I said. Or when you paid for Jake's college but left me to figure it out alone? That was different, my mother said, her voice sharp. We didn't have money back then. You had money for Jake, I shot back. You said he showed promise. She flinched, then backtracked. We thought work would be better for you. I grabbed my suitcase. I need to go. You selfish brat, Jake exploded. After everything this family did for you? What did you do? I asked, turning to face him. Raise me? Feed me? That's parenting, not charity. And you made sure I knew I wasn't wanted. I walked to the door, their protests trailing me like noise from a bad radio. You'll regret this, my mother shouted. I won't, I said, and meant it. By the time I hit the highway, my phone was blowing up. Calls, texts, voicemails dripping with guilt trips. I pulled into a rest stop and blocked them all. Mom, Dad, Jake, Mia, every aunt, and uncle who'd laughed at me. Sarah was the only one I kept unblocked. She'd always been different. The one who checked in, the one who cared. Back in Brooklyn, I poured a glass of wine and stood on my balcony, watching the city glitter below. Sarah texted, heard what happened. Sorry about them. Don't be, I replied. This was the best gift they ever gave me. Freedom. She sent a laughing emoji. Your mom's telling everyone you're ungrateful. Let her, I wrote back. That night, I slept better than I had in years. 6 months later, summer draped Brooklyn in golden light. I sat on my balcony, coffee in hand, watching the world wake up below. Sarah called with updates, not because I asked, but because she cared. Jake and Mia's daughter was born last month, she said. Madison. That's nice, I said, and meant it. I hoped that little girl would grow up loved, not overlooked like I was. According to Sarah, Jake and Mia were still living with my parents. His revolutionary startup still just talk. My parents had turned my Betrayal into their favorite story, painting me as the ungrateful daughter who'd abandoned them despite their sacrifices. But I didn't care. My life was mine now. 3 months after that Christmas, I met Ryan at a coffee shop near my office. A freelance UX designer with a warm smile and a quiet strength. He'd walked away from a toxic family, too. We bonded over late-night talks about code, boundaries, and building lives on our own terms. Work was thriving. I'd been promoted to lead systems architect, spearheading an AI-driven security project that could redefine the industry. My team respected me. My ideas mattered. Then, a month ago, Jake got hold of a new number and called. "Hey, Sophie," he said, his voice fake cheery. "Thought we could catch up." "What do you want?" I asked. "Madison should meet her." "Can't," he said. "Things are tight right now. Mom and Dad's house needs work." "No," I said. "You don't even know how much." "Doesn't matter." He exploded, but I hung up and blocked the number. Sitting in my condo, Ryan beside me, I felt nothing but peace. Everything they said I'd never have. Love, stability, success. I'd built on my own terms. Sarah texted last week. "Mom saw your Instagram. Says it's typical you'd rather vacation than help family." "Good," I replied. "Maybe she'll finally get it." Last week, I was promoted to head of engineering, top 1% salary. My boss said, "You earned this." We celebrated with friends at our usual wine bar, fairy lights twinkling overhead. Ryan brought champagne to the balcony later. "Let's buy a house," I said. "With a yard, maybe a dog." My phone buzzed. Sarah again. "Mom says you must be a drug dealer." I laughed. Let them spin their stories. I was living mine. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me what you walked away from, what peace you built. Don't wait for permission to choose yourself. Build the life that reflects your worth, not their expectations.